your topic, effect of revival. The few minutes that I said will be true. What is it that confirms that revival is happening? Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. We read yesterday, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved on the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. When do we say revival happened? Number one, we said revival happens when God comes down. God came down. God came down. When God steps from the celestial into the terrestrial, we can confirm that revival is happening. When we begin to see beyond the only presence of God into the manifest, concentrated presence, the demonstrated presence of God, we understand that revival is happening. In Isaiah chapter 64, verse 1 all the way to verse 3, we read that yesterday. Oh, that thou wilt rend the heavens, that thou wilt come down, that the mountains might flow at thy presence. So the presence of God collapses, it dissolves mountains. It dissolves the mountain. When the melting fire burns, so the presence of God comes like consuming fire. He said the fire caused the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversary. So when revival happens, God's name is made known. I'm going to come to that shortly. That the nations might tremble at thy presence. When thou did terrible things, which we look not for, thou camest down, the mountains flowed at thy presence. That is revival happening. We read in Habakkuk chapter 3 and in verse 1 to verse 5 yesterday, where we saw the prayer of Habakkuk, a prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet, upon Shigionoth. O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known in wrath, remember mercy. And then he said, God came down. So revival happens when God comes down. God came down in Mount Paran, and then Selah, his glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. Revival happens. Now, what happens when revival happens? Number two, revival happens when God decides to interrupt and shake the systems on the earth. He decides to interrupt and shake earthly systems. Revival happens when God decides to interrupt the status quo, to interrupt the order of service, to interrupt the normal human schedule. Revival happens when God decides to alter the course of events in the earth. In the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 6 to verse 7. Haggai chapter 2, verse 6 to verse 7. He said, for thus saith the Lord, yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth, and the sea and the dry land.